Hi, I'm Holly. I write and teach the Bible studies here at Study with Friends. My background in this is a combination of formal education and my own personal study of the Word. I infuse perspectives from different systematic theologies when I think that would be helpful in rounding out our understanding of the text. But for the record, my formal education is from a Reformed theological seminary. I strongly believe that we should all understand the background of anyone who's teaching us about the Bible. So if you'd like, you can learn more about me at studywithfriends.org or zondervan.com. This is a group of real women doing Bible study and life together, and we're really glad you're here. Okay, I'm coming back to you now, Rachel. You were going to look at Hosea. Can you tell me what verse?
Okay, it's chapter 11, verses 8 and 9.
Okay.
And it says, "Oh, how can I give you up, Israel? How can I let you go? How can I destroy you like Admah or demolish you like Zeboim?" I don't know how to say that. "My heart is torn within me, and my compassion overflows. No, I will not unleash my fierce anger. I will not completely destroy Israel, for I am God and not a mere mortal. I am the Holy One living among you, and I will not come to destroy."
Okay, so tell me what you saw there.
I feel like it brought a lot about like the special relationship out, because it like talks about how like Israel is like rebelling against him, and like God, like his heart is torn, but like his compassion is there because he has that special relationship with them. And like even though they like sin and rebel all the time, like he's going to keep his promise because he's a good God. And I just think it's so nice for us to see this theme, especially in the Old Testament, because it kind of shows just how much he did keep his promises, and also like how like blessed we are because we have that a God who like is good and he's going to keep his promises, even though we
will screw it
are
up.
just as bad as Israel, sinning all the time and stuff like that.
Yep.
And yeah.
So did you see the three parts in there?
I think I do like understand like the I'm guessing the Admah and Zeboim, or I don't know, are like the descendants part, because
I don't even know.
Like, I don't
the
know
truth
who
is
those
I don't
people
really
are.
know. But what to me, it's the first part. So it says, "How can I give you up? How can I hand you over?" So if you look in your homework, Hosea is prophesying to Israel before the exile, and so what he's foreshadowing is what?
That he's going to send them into
exile. So when we say give you up and hand you over, that has a practical application. It's their ejection from the land. So even though it doesn't say the word land, and that's why it's kind of a fun Easter egg hunt, you know what I mean? Where you're like, wait, I don't see the word land, descendants, or relationship, LDR, in this passage. So I don't think it's in there, but it is in there. So that's why we did a little bit of work in the homework, showing you who this prophet was talking to and when he lived, which is why I also love this chart. So I'm going to look at Hosea, and he was
Admah and Zeboim were two cities in the vicinity of Sodom and Gomorrah that suffered the same fate as Sodom and Gomorrah.
Oh, good. Thank you, Gianna and Google.
So that's like the land.
They're mentioned as Canaanite border cities in Genesis 10, verse 19.
Oh, that's
so
good.
He's saying he's not going to destroy their land like he destroyed.
Very good. Very good. Okay, and so Hosea was well before the exile. I'm looking at my chart here because I'm not really great with remembering exactly when they all lived. So if when I read that, he's, like you just said, he's lamenting, this is coming. I'm going to have to allow you to be captured and oppressed because that is the consequence.
But I won't let you be destroyed.
Yep. Which, by the way, implies what? No. I mean, yes, but I won't let you be destroyed.
Like his descendants.
Yes.
And like,
yes. Yes.
And it says like completely.
No, you did great. You did great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you see it more clearly?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Let's keep doing that work. Rachel, you also said you wanted to look at Micah.
Yeah. Micah 2:12-13. It says, "Someday, O Israel, I will gather you. I will gather the remnant who are left. I will bring you together again like sheep in a pen, like a flock in its pasture. Yes, your land again will be filled with noisy crowds. Your leader will break out and lead you out of exile, out through the gates of the enemy cities, back to your own land. Your king will lead you. The Lord himself will guide you." I just think there's a lot to unpack in these verses. Like, I do see all three themes.
First, do that. Tell me the three themes, and then I agree with you. There's more to it here.
Yeah. When it says, like, I will gather you and, like, bring you out, bring you together again, I think that kind of talks about, like, land, how he's going to bring them together in the land.
Agree.
I think, like, the leader will break you out and lead you out of exile. That's pointing to Jesus, which is kind of like the descendants.
Yes.
There.
Good.
And also just, like, the special relationship, like, he is promising to them, like, because he has a relationship with them and he loves them and he wants them to come together again, and how he's gonna, like, guide them, and that's kind of, like, points to the relationship.
Yeah, very good work.
Yeah.
So the three, there's our LDR. And then what else did you think we should unpack here?
I was kind of, not like a question, but just kind of, like, pointing to what he's talking about, because I do see how he's talking about, like, the king will lead you, the Lord will guide you out. He's talking about, like, when Jesus is going to save them. But I think that I was a little confused about how, and this might be confusing, but, like, the Israelites, like, they saw this as he's going to bring us out. He's going to bring us together in the future physically, in a certain way, and they're seeing him as, like, he's going to do that. But then we see this as, oh, it's Jesus bringing them out. And what exactly was he talking about? Is he talking about, like, when we have, like, the new heaven and the new earth?
Well, it's interesting. Let me see if you guys can get there on your own. So in the homework, one of the things that I said was Micah was prophesying. He's really preaching to Judah and Israel. So by design, what does that mean? Or earlier in the homework, I just want to lead you there instead of telling you the answer. Earlier in the homework, do you see this page where it has, like, when they all lived? It says context.
Oh, the homework that we didn't print out.
Okay, well, no. This is in the Latter Prophets. Prophets. And what I tried to do, and hopefully our awesome editorial designer, Alyssa, will do a better job of this with an image than I did in text. But basically what I wanted you to see was when each of them lived. And also, again, like I said, that's really helpful to look at in this chart. So if you look at before we go back to what Micah's actual words mean, a good way to figure out what they mean is when he was talking and to whom he was talking and about what, which is why we're doing this covenant business. So if Micah was talking to Judah and Israel between 738 and 698, which we feel pretty confident about that dating, then that means he was well before the exile. Right? You tracking with me, guys? He was well before the exile. So if you read again, I will surely assemble all of you, O Jacob. I will gather the remnant of Israel. I will set them together like sheep in a fold, like a flock in its pasture, a noisy multitude of men. He's talking about gathering them back together, right? And you asked me, like, what's he talking about there? This is a straight up prophecy, Rachel, because what he's talking to, he's giving the nation text and prophecy to lean on once they've been exiled. God knows it's about to happen. It's going to happen. This is actually prophesied way before it happened, but it's given to the nation as a reassurance of, I will bring you back. I will bring you back. And so even most of the prophets were a partnership of this message. Trouble is coming, but God will restore you. Your consequences are at hand for your crazy behavior, but God is always going to be faithful to you. He's not going to forget his promises. He's going to bring you back. And so it's it's an already not yet. You know, that expression we use as Christians, Rachel, is it's hasn't happened yet in the actual timeline of Israel. So this is prophecy at that time looking forward, but we are able to see it backwards. So he's telling Israel, here's what's going to happen, but don't worry. Judgment is never the final word with any of these prophets. There's always a message of hope. And so what we take then in the bigger, I love that you said the word meta narrative. That's so great. I wish I'd been saying that all along. In the bigger biblical narrative, we see also it has application to where we are right now and to where we're going. So it has application to Israel back then, that they will be brought back in from judgment. And that's a message of hope. It has application to us right now because we are brought back in to a relationship with him through Christ and what he did and accomplished on the cross. That's a message of hope. And it gives us a forward look as to how God is going to just solve this world and all the brokenness. He's going to bring it all back together. And that's a message of hope. So the question that you asked, the answer is yes and, right? It's all of it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying is like, what exactly was he referencing here? And like you're saying it's...
And, you know, that's kind of what I was saying before, which is they only saw a piece of what he was referencing, if they saw it at all, because it was before the exile. So they were probably like, what?
That was my question. How long before? Because, I mean, there was a period before the exile of really, really bad kings, and someone with their eyes open could see, hey, this king really is bad. And if our prophet is saying, don't worry, even when things get horrible, God will always be with you. That's what God told me to tell you. When things absolutely hit the fan, don't worry about it. If I'm in Israel and I'm seeing a terrible king and a prophet who's telling me to hold on to God during the tornado, I'm like, it's about to get real. Like,
well, so there's a couple things I think we have to recognize. And this is some of what we said in the series previous. First, as the king goes, so the people go. So it's entirely possible that the word of the prophet was a lone voice in the culture at that time. At the very least, it was a lonely voice, a very lonely voice. By the time these prophets, especially the latter prophets, all of them, by the time they were doing their work, both the northern and the southern kingdom were in a bit of a mess. Again, I want to reference that the prophets that you see in the latter prophets and the things that they're talking about are partnering with the narrative from 1st and 2nd Kings. So when you see he did evil in the sight of the Lord, he did not tear down the high places. That's the king that is a partner to the prophets that we read. What I wish kind of is we would read the kings and then we would hear the prophet that matches with that in the same book, but we don't. It's not how it's laid out for us. So we have to do that work a little bit to say,
there are Bibles
who was it? Well, here again, like this is where you do that. But it's a very easy visual. I don't know.
A chronological Bible.
I'm not sure. That. Not really, because you still have to break it up by the books. Just trust me.
Okay. I have.
Looking at this chart is really, really helpful for that, because you can see on the timeline who the prophet was and who the king was and where even the dates of where they were on the timeline. But I tried to do a little bit of that in the homework, but I do recommend getting this. It's called the Bible Timeline Chart by Rose Publishing. And the website is Hendrickson. Oh my gosh, my glasses. HendricksonRose.com. I'll probably attach it to the webpage, because we're not product placement people. We don't get any money for this, but these are resources that I find really helpful, genuinely helpful. And so I just would want people to have them if they would also find them helpful. But I'm a visual person, and also helps me if you can like line it up for me in a way that makes sense visually. Like I'm an infographic person, like show me, don't tell me. Okay. So
no, wait. So this passage is discussing unification of nations under God. And
No, not really. It's talking about the reunification of Israel.
Yeah. So if at the time, could at the time, again, Israelite me is maybe hearing that and thinking that the reunification of Israel and Judah?
I think you're overthinking it, because I think that the way that prophecy was received is different than I think what you're trying to do is kind of get into the mind of the listener at the time.
Yeah.
But what I think you have to recognize is that the prophets would bring a word that often the people didn't understand. But they knew that the prophet's word was the word of God. And so they would store it up and understand that it might be unpacked later.
Okay.
I think the overarching message of most of, if not all of the prophets, is return to God, return to God, return to God. And so what Micah is telling them in this passage is there's a message of hope, because you have to, like I always say, don't just know the address, know the neighborhood. You have to understand what Micah was talking about in his whole book. And what Micah was talking about is consequences are coming. Consequences are coming. He's prophesying the exile. Mm-hmm. He's telling them, repent, turn back. Bad things are going to happen if you don't. But this tiny piece that we pulled out is a message of hope. Even back when Moses was prophesying to the nation, he knew that kings were going to come. And he would say, when a king, he said, when a king comes, and he also said, if you were rebellious while you were with me, how much more rebellious are you going to be when I'm gone? And so these are sort of lessons for the people, but they're also prophetic word by God to let the people know, you'll see soon enough how this is going to play out. And remember what I'm saying to you now.
Right. But I'm just, given the context and given his audience at the time, is there significance in the fact that that God's chosen people were divided at the time?
Oh, for sure. You mean the northern and southern kingdom.
The northern and southern kingdoms.
Yeah, that's
that
great.
Seems
that's
like
great
a
insight.
parallel.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that's what you were talking
that's just,
about.
I meant like, if this was said when it was one nation, it wouldn't have stuck out, but they were two nations, and one of them got overthrown and one of them didn't, right? Sorry, the dog is
having a little
dream. He's barking
like, is he
in
crying?
his sleep.
Yeah, so they were both overthrown. That's the exile.
So
that's the
overthrown.
exile. Yeah.
And then when they come back, it's so hard to
It's okay.
focus.
Please stay focused. He's fine.
When they come back, are they one nation again, or are they two?
When they come back to the promised land, when they're out of the exile, they're one nation.
So see, in a way, that is sort of what I was saying earlier of like, it's not just speaking directly to, so I read it and I think, oh, well, given what's happening right now, that he's probably talking about Israel
reuniting
and
the nation,
becoming one. And in a way he is, but I'm just like wondering what that effect would be on the people of Israel at the time. That's all I was trying to consider.
I think we can speculate, although we don't love to speculate about Bible stuff. I think we can speculate the reason that the nation was divided is similar to what we experience now, which is both sides thought they were right. And so I'm sure that some people thought, like both of them thought they were the righteous kingdom, the right kingdom, the rightful kingdom.
See, I've sort of always thought of it as an East Germany, West Germany type thing, or East Berlin, West Berlin. Like, this is just sort of what's happening, and neither side thinks that they're better than the others. Like, the citizens are like chill with each other, but it's just like bigger things are happening. Is that not? Well, was there like strife between the citizens of each?
I don't want to get into that because I'm not an expert in it. Not because I'm trying to veil it from you. I'm just not an expert in it. You should totally research it and then maybe write a blog for us about it. But I think what we can take away from it is some simple understanding, which is the nation was divided. And your insights are good that they might have received this as a future telling of how God's going to bring us back into one nation of Israel.
And it did.
And he did. What they probably didn't know at the time was they would go through these 70 years of exile first as a consequence for how bad it got. Okay. That's helpful. Thanks for that insight. Okay. Any other questions you have or insights about Micah? Okay, really good. Okay, Kate, you said you wanted to take a look at Habakkuk. I'm ready.
Okay.
Would you tell me the verses, please?
Okay, Habakkuk 2, 3 and 4.
Chapter 2, verses 3 and 4?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it will speak, and it will not lie. Though it tarries, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry. Behold the proud, his soul is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. So for that one, I had trouble seeing land and descendants, but I did especially see the special relationship with God, because he's saying that he's sending a vision. I was also questioning what the vision was, because I feel like we know what it is, since we're looking at this, from the future.
Okay. So how do we always unpack scripture when we don't understand it? The first thing we do is cast a wider net. Mm-hmm. So if you don't understand verse 3, the first thing I would tell you is check out verse 2. Mm-hmm. So what do you see there?
Okay. Verse 2 says, let me sticky this over it. Then the Lord answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain on tablets, that he may run who reads it.
Mm-hmm. And what does that mean then for the vision? What vision is he talking about? Okay, go back one more verse.
Okay. I will stand my watch and set myself on the rampart and watch to see what he will say to me and what I will answer when I am corrected.
Okay, so Habakkuk chapter 1 is Habakkuk's complaint. And he's basically saying, because I'm going to give you, we could keep doing this all day. I could go back further, but let me just give you the cliff notes. Habakkuk is frustrated with God, saying, what is happening and why?